stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, right on to item C. So we will open the floor for public comment. We always offer the opportunity for both in-person and virtual. And start with in-person comment. If there's anybody here, making a public comment.
Oh, no, I was just
No, sorry, we're happy to have everybody here. All right, so we'll open it up virtually as well. If you are interested in public comment, please raise your hand, and Devin will unmute you.
See, no thanks.
All right, excellent. Thank you. We'll move right on to item D. So can I have a motion to approve the attached November 15, 2023 minutes?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Item E, correspondence received 11/13/2023 to 12/18/2023, which we do not have anything in this agenda packet. But I always take the opportunity to mention here for our community members, please use the correspondence form or the contact form, as we call it, on the front page of our website. That's a great way to reach us, ask questions, provide comment if you can't be with us in the meeting, and we'll certainly get a response back to you as quickly as possible. So we'll move right on to reports. F1, I don't have anything specific on the chair report this evening. So we'll go right on to town council liaison report.
I'll just mention briefly that we'll say, thank you for the outgoing council people that were there. CJ Thomas, who was our chair for 3 terms, Rafina Bacchus Lee, and Edward J. Narrows. A big thank you for serving and doing the volunteering and all that kind of stuff. And congratulations to the incoming. And this will be my last report as a town council liaison. We have someone else in mind. That's it.
All right. Any questions for Johnny right now? No? All right, go to Board of Education liaison report.
So I'll just kind of echo a little bit what Johnny said. We divided our outgoing board of ed members, which I'm one of, so that's my last board of ed meeting, and supervised to our chair and a bunch of other great people on the board. So we thank them all for their service as well. So some changes. Yeah.
Yes, exactly right. So based on those comments, you will see some adjustments on our committee, but I think we've handled those very smoothly in the past. We certainly have some new issues of members maybe playing a little different role, but similar to us. But I think we can also, as our committee, say a thank you as well to those acting council members and board members that certainly have been a big part of our success today. So more to come. I'm sure we'll see them. It's not that people are going to disappear and won't see them forever. So, but certainly our thank you for their support of our project for a very long time now. So we'll move right on to 1928 Building Committee Liaison Report.
Yeah, thank you, Meg. Nothing terribly significant to report. We're about 50% completed with the design development documents. And we, at last meeting on the 12th, approved RFP for commissioning and engineering services. We'll get some critical mass after the new year. We're going to finish up the design development documents and go through the value engineering process. So we'll start getting some critical mass after the new year. So everything's going a long time.
Any questions for Chris on 1928 right now? All right, we'll move right on to architect reports.
Thank you very much. Happy holidays to everybody. I have the 4 items to report. The first being our observations on construction activity. We see no major hiccups in the work that we've been looking at. The project has been going extremely well. In fact, at the last OAC meeting on Tuesday, I made a comment And they had to put it as a part of the permanent record, which is, I said, this is an extremely well-kept site. The housekeeping is great, and that's one of the signs I look for when I visit a construction site. If the housekeeping is poor, that's a bad sign. There are other signs that I'll tell you about some other day, but none of those signs I see on the project site, which is great. After the last OAC meeting yesterday, in the trailer, we had a site logistics planning session with several people. Scott Hurwitz was there, Russ Chris, the police department were there, to discuss traffic next summer, next year, before the start of school. This was brought up by Scott, I think at an earlier meeting, is that we need to know where the students are parking. Remember that we're gonna have the new building in place. Building footprint will also be in place. And so we're not gonna have all of the parking for students built yet. Can I borrow that? Future student parking is in this area. But this is where the existing building footprint is. There's a big portion of the building here. There's a portion of the building back here. So George Gibbons, who's the project super at OG in the trailer, he participated in this. He's going to try to grab as many of those spaces as possible as soon as he can. And then we started looking at the site overall to see if we can't get student parking elsewhere. And I think we can, because there's a parking lot to the west of the 1928 building that's still there. It's there right now. So we talked about that. So Richard Segan, our landscape architect, as well as Dave Sullivan, who is with SLR, he's the traffic engineer. They're going to come up with a diagram that we will review with the same group of people, and then hopefully that'll be resolved by next summer. The third item I wanted to talk about, I'm going to ask Susan Pinky to talk about. She's attending this meeting virtually. There she is. And so, Susan, if I can turn it over to you and ask you to report on the bid results for the furniture portion.
Absolutely. Can we get that up on the screen?
Yep, just give me 1 second here.
Hey, Richard, we have a motion later on. Do you want us to push that forward now in the agenda or?
No, not necessarily. You may think of some questions between now and
Kind of there.
then. Yes.
Okay. There we go. Okay, so I think we had a really, overall, we had a successful bid. The numbers came in below the estimate, which is always a good sign. We did have a couple categories that we did not receive bids on, but I do have some solutions for that, so I'll come back to that. As you can see, the overall number that we're going to be looking at tonight is going to be the $3 million and with $2,430.99. That is the number that we're going to be looking to approve tonight. That is the total of the recommended bids for this for the FF&E thus far. So we had a few. The ones that you see here that are in bright yellow are the ones that were low bid as specified. So there's absolutely, no question to that. The ones that you see in the peach color are the ones that were incomplete. So that means that the vendor did not bid all of the items that were in the category. And usually that would automatically just kind of disqualify them. There are occasionally exceptions to that, but in this case that isn't going to happen. And then the ones that you see that are in the green were ones that were low bids, but they did include substituted items. So the ones that came in that were below the as specified We did review, we had a meeting, I had a meeting with the FF&E committee on Friday last week. We discussed, I went through all of the differences that were submitted between the items that were or equals and the items that were as specified. And it was, the general consensus is that most of the items just were not even close to what was specified in terms of aesthetic or quality or functionality. And in some cases, they didn't even have, ADA accessibility and that type of thing. So the outcome of that meeting was that we determined that there really wasn't anything that we felt we could justify substituting. So the pale yellow that you see on here are the lowest acceptable bid, meaning that it is specified, but it may not have been the absolute lowest in that category, but it's as specified, and it's the items that the school does want to have, and that are, of course, not a compromise. So the total of these categories we've got for each vendor. Hilliard is they do a lot of custodial supply items, and they did bid part of the equipment category. The rest of the equipment category, we didn't get any bids on. And for that category, then also there was the category RK, which is the retail kiosk, and category TS, which is the TV specialty items. And those were the TV specialty items are like a broadcast desk and these things that are called gobos, that are these very specialized mobile acoustic screens for the Edge Studio. And it's kind of understandable. A lot of vendors kind of shy away from things that are considered secondary or tertiary products, rather than something that they feel they're directly working, like the school furniture is really considered something that they typically like to work with because they're going to get the maximum profit off of it. There's no questions about anything. They're quite familiar with it. Things they're not familiar with, sometimes they tend to not want to approach it, which is the reason that we probably did not get bids. So what I did was I did reach out to Frank Vielli at WB Mason. He's in charge of the Northeast commercial division. And I talked to him about the possibility of him providing us with pricing on the items that were not quoted in this bid. And he said, and I called him for a reason, because WB Mason is one of the few vendors who will be willing to bid on these or to provide pricing on some of these, kind of more unusual items. So he is putting together, he's got to getting together with his team, and he is putting together some numbers for us so that in January, when we come back, I can present those numbers and we can discuss how you feel about them. So we should be able to get the rest of the items that we want from WB Mason, assuming that, the numbers seem to come in as expected. So those values right now, the estimated value for those items are what you see in the second to the right-hand column where the orange text is. So those are the estimates that I had for those products that are in those categories. And that's the remaining estimates, I should say. The balance of the category E and the rest of them for the two other categories. So, excuse me. So for tonight, I would like to ask that we consider having you vote on approving the $3,002,430.99 when the time comes for a motion on that. And then we will when we come back in January, we will have the numbers for the other categories as well. So that is pretty much it. If anybody has any questions about the process or how we went about it or anything else, please feel free to ask.
Just a quick question. If we approve and change tonight, is there any scenario where you see the remaining bids coming in January that push us over what we had for numbers? Or do you think we're in a safe place that even when we get the final numbers, that you feel confident that by voting on this tonight, that we're not putting ourselves in a position to be, you know, out of money next month.
No, no, I don't see that as being an issue at all. As you can see, the total for the unbid, for the recommended award, and then the total estimate, including the total with the estimated categories as well, is only 3.123. So what we're looking at, or 124 if you want to round it up. So the chances that we're gonna eat up the remaining contingency beyond that of 476 is not likely. So we will still have some money left over. There has been some discussion about possibly, I know that there's some questions about whether some of the shop equipment they had planned to reuse is still viable. I guess there are some things that might need repair and they're wondering if maybe they can replace them. So that might be where that contingency comes in. But no, I do not anticipate the quotes coming in that high. As you can see, the total of that is less than 200,000 for the estimate. So the chances of that being, 5 times what I've estimated is not likely.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I just kind of went a little fast, so I just wanted to ask again, what is the RK category and the J category again?
Yes, RK is the retail kiosk. That's going to be going in the eastern portion of the first floor concourse, and that's for sales of coffee and things like that. It's going to be an educational opportunity as well for the students. And then there's also the TV studio items. That's what the TS is. That's the broadcast desk. And there are 4 of these GOBO screens, GOBO, that are specialty acoustic screens that were requested.
And what was the J category?
I'm just gonna jump in. The coffee, Susan, is for adults. It's our Hawks Nespresso program. It's a job skills and daily living skills for our students. That is real widely popular right now. So we'll be kind of on the main hallway there. Just didn't want anyone opening a coffee business to be against the healthy.
Better than some.
Anyhow, sorry, continue, Susan.
That's better than some of the rumors I heard my girls coming back with.
Right, very good.
So I guess the question on that, retail kiosks, actually looking at some of those systems too. Are you able to find a vendor? Because I don't think WB Mason is. Like, I was just curious where direction you guys are going with finding a bid or a vendor in that category.
For which category?
For the RK, for the kiosk.
Oh, RK. Well, we have a spec for this from a manufacturer. I think they're out in the Midwest. And so the idea is that WB Mason would be purchasing those items hopefully at a wholesale cost, and then they would resell it and install it for you. So that's the way the furniture vending works. So we have the product. It's just a matter of who can obtain it for us and install it for us.
And just one last question. So WB will be able to give you an estimate or a bid for these all 3 categories?
Yes. Yes. And then I neglected to mention category J. I apologize. That's the janitorial category. This was a category that was inadvertently left off of the bid form. That's on me. I overlooked that. They did submit unit pricing. And so that is something that we probably will have to rebid that one category, because they're not being on the bid form means that they did not, it's not really an official bid. The only one who bid on it was Hilliard. And I asked them about being on state contract. They are on contract for CREC schools and things like that, but they are not currently on the DAS contract. They used to be, but they are no longer. So I found that out just yesterday, and so that is one category we will need to rebid, but I don't see that as being an issue.
Questions right now, as we mentioned. As we mentioned, with items, E3, I think on our agenda is actually going to get a motion forward to approve this. Give everybody an opportunity to kind of think a little bit, so yeah, now they're asking me to ask questions.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you very well. That was,
All right, Susan, yeah, I was just saying, we have an item, the G3R on our agenda is actually when we'll do the vote to approve the package, so it's a little bit later in our agenda. for
yes,
staff.
okay.
All right, anything?
Yes, a couple more things. I did want to share with you, actually, Devin just put it on the screen briefly. That's an overall site plan that has been developed by our landscape consultants. Because we do have to go to Planning and Zoning Commission because we're modifying the site because we're incorporating the 1928 building improvements, which is not part of this project. But when you combine that project with our project, it affects the entire site. And so this diagram illustrates where the 1928 building there is on the bottom, right there. Thank you, Devin. And there's parking adjacent to it. That's again, not part of the high school, but the Planning and Zoning Commission wants to know the whole picture, and this is all one parcel. So that's why we have to tabulate parking in different areas so that in the 1928 building, we're adding 83 parking spaces. And then in the library area, there's a little bit of parking that's left over. I think it's about 35 or 40 spaces. Remember that lower area of the site is temporary parking right now for students. And the intention is to restore or remove that parking and do something with the remaining parcel in that area. However, we've been asked, can you save several of those spaces from the temporary parking area and leave them on the parcel, which we can. We just need to report all of those changes to Planning and Zoning Commission, which I believe is going to be scheduled for January. So I wanted to give you a peek of that. And then I'm going to finish up my presentation by asking Archie if she has anything she wants to add.
So I just want to report on the submittal status that we're reviewing now. So for the high school, it's the submittals are tapering down. So what we are focusing now mostly is on the painting shop drawings for the area D and E. And we're also reviewing the non-structural metal framing for the articulated walls of the auditorium. And we're seeing submittals for the area F, the central office. So we're reviewing the mechanical and plumbing equipments for that project. That's correct.
That's it.
Any questions for? If they were out right now?
Richard, how do you get into the E3 or is that the max?
Well, we're not planning that parcel.
Oh,
That's excluded
just
from our
incorporating the
project.
design that's part of the project. Gotcha.
That's correct.
Anything else? All right, we'll move right on to construction manager report.
I'll be fairly quick, the agenda that goes out is 640 pages, so all the details in there. Later in the meeting, I'll go over the pencil copy. Basically the pencil copy before it was submitted was roughly $5,468,000 after we review it with the professional partners meeting. And then at the sub-finance committee meeting, line item by line item, the final approved is $4,867,368.31. Roughly it came down by 600,000, primarily because the RTUs didn't show up in November, and they're going to show up a little bit later. General items overall, the high school is at 62%. Site work is a little bit further along now that we're doing the main promenade that eliminates the parent drop-off and the student drop-off, 49% in commissioning. We're working with IES. We actually had a follow-up meeting with them today. They're at 21%. Our GMP contingency is at 3.1 million, roughly 93% still available, which at this point in the project is very healthy. We still have the high school to demolish, and there's unknowns here, but that's good at this stage in the project. brickwork complete, which is a great milestone. Interior ground face CMU, they're in full force. The roof metal walls on the roof is in progress, and the windows are coming around areas C and D. And the elevators did show up, and they're installing them as we speak, the month of December. Building A classrooms, primarily interior work continues with millwork and flooring starting in January. Area B classrooms, interior work continues with MEPs and ceilings. Millwork and flooring will follow area A. Building C, the tech arts wing, STEAM classrooms, drywall and taping. Building D, kitchen and gymnasium areas. The boiler room build out is in full progress. The boilers have been installed, circulator pumps, and a lot of the mechanical equipment. Gym ductwork is progressing. Building E, auditorium, administrative areas, the 10th scaffold that we call the dance floor scaffold. That's the scaffold that the workers will be working on above ceiling mechanicals and also the ceiling clouds. That's being erected. It started this week. Final structural steel for the second floor is complete. Concrete placements will take place later this month, and interior drywall in that area started. MEP coordination, we're in area F, the high school is done, fully signed off. There's just 2 RFIs that we're working with TSKP to get final answers on those to wrap up that coordination. The tennis court rebids, we're still planning on bidding early 2024. TSKP is working on receiving some RFP or some proposals for doing test borings early in the springtime. So we'll get those bids out even before the borings get done. 1928 building project coordination is taking place. We are pricing up the DD set, and there's a proposal request as well. So we'll get that wrapped up based off of an RFI response. ONG builds, our next session is January 8th. We're doing I was planning doing a virtual, but with the school and our department coordinator, it's better to have an in-person in the trailer meeting. So we'll have our computer screens up and question and answer. They've been successful, and we'll continue those on January 8th. We're doing bi-weekly tours every other Friday. We're not going to have any more until the new year, but we just did one last week. Time capsule, we found a location. We're making an access door, and actually the school is working on a time capsule. It could be placed at any time. So we don't have to destroy a wall 25, 30 years from now. Just open up the door and time capsules there. It's going to be located on the 2nd floor of the auditorium area, the upper platform area. We're issuing our monthly newsletter. We sent out a draft copy today, and we'll issue it out before Friday, and Friday's folders. And if any of the building committee members which don't have students want to read it, we'll probably distribute it out as well to committee members. That's all I have to report on. So happy holidays if there's any questions. Richard, you're always good for it.
I don't think we want to open up the time capsule in 25 years,
50.
maybe 100.
You and I
The existing building is almost 100 years.
That's right.
So I don't know if there's a time capsule in that there.
There may be. We'll find out. But either way, the school, they're taking ownership in that. And later on, once the town can also place a time capsule later on, having a townwide event. But it's in the high school. It's really a high school time capsule. So, you guys are working on something. If there's any other questions?
I do want to do pictures.
Yeah, so that's the promenade. They're actually further along, that was taken last week, the granite curving. So on your right-hand side is the bus drop-off area, and on the left-hand side will be parent drop-off, and that stair tower is stair 1 where the students enter. This is the exterior courtyard outside of stair 2, so they were installing the exterior structures, this will be all concrete pavers and seat wall area, come springtime. That's in building B, the second floor classroom area. They're still doing above ceiling mechanical work. They'll start ceiling grid, in the next few weeks in that area. That's actually the auto shop. The wood shop is to the right, outside of the photo. So the drywall ceiling, there is another ceiling that goes directly below that ceiling. It's all an acoustically rated ceiling because you have digital design directly above and there's classroom spaces above. So that's a very intricate ceiling. So they're going to start installing that lower grid once that's all prepared for them to start. They'll start that in early January. You could see the overhead doors already installed, and then the current wall, they'll start that actually next week. That's directly above the auto and wood shop. So that's the second floor. You'll have unit skylights. So that's a coffered ceiling there. So once those unit skylights we're planning on proceeding those in January. You'll have a lot of natural light on that second floor. That's the gymnasium. So you see the spiral ductwork between the joists. That was last week. This week they have that side completely done, and they're working on the small gym side, which is in my direction. That's the ground face CMU. It's not washed, but that's the opposite side of this wall is the kitchen surgery area. This is the main concourse looking back towards the student entrance and the job trailers. So it's that vantage point. And on the record, Taisu is very happy.
Yeah, put that in the minutes.
He came by last week and he was satisfied with the workmanship of the mason. That's the auditorium prior to the dance floor scaffolding being erected. So this week, if you go in there, I believe Scott, you saw that yesterday. It's a bunch of pipe scaffolding and staging. So where you see the catwalk directly above, that'll be all hidden behind ceiling clouds. So all those mechanicals get built off of this scaffolding that they're about 3/4 of the way up. And that's the brickwork complete. So they're still in that picture. They're washing it. They're still touching up a few areas, but the brickwork is for the most part complete. All the hydro-molded scaffolding has been removed from the site. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions from us? All right, thank you. All right, we'll move right on to project manager report.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We processed this month, eight change orders through the project. They've been vetted through the financial subcommittee, the decision-making group. One of the largest one I took a note and have a little discussion on is the acid neutralization tanks for all the chem labs and science labs. You'll notice that $107,000 is being charged to the construction manager contingency. The remaining $35,000 is for the owner's contingency, and that's to cover the additional 13 lab sinks that were not included in the original bid. But the money was covered within the bid. That's why it's continued covered to the construction manager. The other items, we vetted them all out, gone through the numbers. We recommend them to be incorporated in the project. One change order that we're working on right now is the intersection of Monteith Drive and Route 4. We're going to have a change order to incorporate some pedestrian signals for the walkers coming around through the intersection as part of, and it came up, this is coming up through our developer encroachment permit through the DOT. In order to work within the state right away, you have to get an encroachment permit from the DOT on the state road. We've gone back and forth with the DOT through the district, and some of the items that they requested, I didn't agree with. I went to the state traffic engineer, who happens to be a former employee and friend. So we were able to work out some details and get that straightened out. And overall, we both agreed that having new pedestrian signals, a new crosswalk at Route 4 with a new high school is probably the best way to go from a safety standpoint. So that'll be coming. And we're working on the design now. Richard and his group is working on the plan. So that's one of the ones I wanted to outline coming up. If there's any questions on any of the COs? Oh,
You want to just get a quick after we have these at our seat. You want to just kind of, now you don't have to go through them, but just that we have these tools available.
which ones are you holding? I have
I'm
about
sorry.
seven.
Contingency.
Oh, it's been too long, sure.
Yeah.
So, for the high school, we're doing very well. We're still running through change orders. So if you can imagine with a project this size through the RFI and submittal process, questions comes up and have to be answered. So we're very good there. Nothing other than typical change orders that I'm foreseeing as far as any big liability coming forward. One thing with the central office, we have a change order on the contingency to do a redesign of some of the office space. And that's gonna eat into a big chunk of that contingency. So I just want everyone to be aware of that going forward. But I don't, right now for the high school itself, I don't see any major liability coming at us.
Any questions for Russ on anything?
Just a couple of observations, if I may. One of these change orders is a credit. It says credit, but there's not a negative number there, so you might accidentally misread it. That's PCO 85. That 5,390 should be a negative number. And then there's also in the PCO 85 description, it says credit palm, that should be P-land, which means plastic laminate, not palm. For some people, these things are important.
The way I did the Excel format, it is a negative.
Okay.
Yeah, anything in the parentheses is a credit.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this one. Oh, we need to just switch that.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
P-LAM,
sorry,
it's,
yeah.
it's correct in the title, but in the description, it's,
Yeah.
it was a transposition.
Exactly.
And then just to support what Russ said about contingency for the Board of Ed offices, and you can't transfer money from one project to another. They're separate projects. So even if you underspend on one, you can't transfer money. At least I've never been able to figure out a way to do it.
Any other questions about finance right now? Just to follow, so we talked about possible expenses going with the central office, that's gonna be a whole separate conversation, right? Because whatever we say here, we can't transfer to that. So we'll table that and not worry about that at this time.
We'll worry about it when it comes to us, but there are two separate contingencies.
Okay.
You'll see on the contingency log that the high school has started with roughly 6.2 million, I believe. The central office has a $206,000 contingency. You can't interchange them. So it's just trying to keep an eye on things coming out.
Exactly.
Are we allowed to just get an idea of what the changes are?
Yeah, they're on the log.
For, not for this, but for central office, that come in, they want it.
Sure, that is for a redesign of the office space.
Oh, so that's.
Areas.
Big reason.
Correct.
I know you mentioned that, I wasn't sure if there was.
Yep.
More to come.
Basically,
More to come.
More to come.
more to come once we,
Okay.
everything gets ironed out. So I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention where, what the rough order of magnitude is at this point.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
No problem.
Any thoughts, comments?
Just a point. Yeah. The BOE central office, which is the existing building, I thought the whole, except the 1928, everything would be demolished. Is that not so?
900 wing stays,
Oh.
Board of Ed Central Office, 1928 section stays, everything else.
Everything.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, there's a little bit more in 1928 than just,
Correct, yeah, it's the existing band room, right, also.
yeah.
And there's a portion of the area F that's still considered the high school, which is the field house portion.
Yeah.
So whatever happens on that central office, that's where that contingency would be used, but not the entire 900 section.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point. We'll talk about that.
All right. To, communications subcommittee report. We actually ended up canceling our communications subcommittee meeting just prior to this meeting, this month, but basically the newsletter is in progress. We've got the content in, it's all written up, we're doing final edits, so right now that'll go out early-ish January, early to mid-January, we'll put the newsletter up. It's actually a really nice summation of a lot of good work, the ONG program that is going on with the students that highlight there, as well as the work in progress, where we are at status for construction overall, and then a quick Q&A on, making sure people understand how 1928 is working in conjunction with this project at the same time. So it's really nice quotes from students that I thought were great too on the ONG program and some of the experiences they're having. So more to come. That should get your mail out sometime in January, but really the big work effort there. Anything else? I don't think communications that we need to ask. Okay, so then we'll move on to F9, professional partnership subcommittee report. Yeah,
We're gonna cover it, in our votes tonight, but we met in monsoon weather on Monday. Looked at, RFPs and questions for the upcoming, owners rep services that we're looking at. Those are-
Yeah, so as Johnny mentioned, there's more in our agenda package to get through this, as far as the goals that came out of that meeting, so more detail. All right, financial subcommittee report, standard report out on this committee as well. As you guys are well aware, we've heard from several reports tonight. That's our opportunity. We actually met last Friday and went over all of the financials that you've seen already, as well as the change orders, just the questioning and vetting of that detailed information. So again, more to come in our agenda items and new business as far as approving the packages that we have listed out in the agenda packet. But I don't think there's anything else in particular that came out other than the review of the financials. All right, financial report.
Yes, at your places, you have an updated report for our separate committee account. We had two things come out this month. Both were advertisements for bids that we had out there. One was for the FF&E bid. We posted a legal notice in the Hartford Current. And then the second was a notice for the owner's rep and move management RFP that we had out there. So it's too expensive. Legal notices are pretty expensive, but they are a requirement for the bid, especially for reimbursement purposes. So necessary.
Anybody any questions on those? All right, excellent. We will move right on then. Heading into new business, so for item G1, so I get a motion to approve the following invoice tax for central office. Second. All right, open it up for discussion. Just real detail there, these are standard.
Yeah, I can just quickly go over these. The TSKP one, if you remember a few months ago, the committee approved an ad service for some of those central office redesign. This is just billing against those hours for that redesign in their invoice. And then the IES one, you guys actually approved that last month. It was just incorrectly categorized under the FHS packet. So just for audit purposes in the future, we wanted to get it under the correct heading. That did not slow down payment or anything. They've been paid, but we just wanted to put it back out here to process correctly.
Any questions on that? All right, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Item G2, so that I have a motion to approve the following invoice package for Farmington High School.
So, second.
All right, we'll open this up for discussion.
I'll start it off with, the TSKP ones. The first one, unfortunately, TSKP got us their invoice like the day after we sent out the agenda, for last month. So this first one is the October invoice. Typically, we would have approved that last month. You'll see it's their monthly payment and then some work billed against some of those fee proposals for ad services that we've gotten. So if you look at the invoice, you'll see which ones they've done work on for that month. Same situation for the next one, it's in the monthly fee and then additional work on those ad services. The next one is the O&G invoice. Nelson, I don't know if you want to touch on that one.
Yeah, again, the original one was, 5.5 million roughly. And the final approved after reviewing it with everybody, design team, professional partners is 4,867,368.31, and we recommend approval.
Any questions on that? That's obviously the big one. Questions on that? Yeah. Okay, all right.
The next three are from IMTL, that's our materials testing. They send us invoices based on going out, doing reports, testing the material. O&G does review all of these that they send over. They verify that they were out there. They verify that they received the report. So they've signed off and approved for payment these three, the 630, 1,100, and 610. Moving on to the next one, IES is our commissioning agent. Same situation, they work very closely with O&G. O&G verifies each month the work that they performed, the meetings that they've had on site, and verifies this invoice for payment. So that's in the amount of 6,240. The next two on the agenda, last month, the committee approved Russ as the project manager beginning October 1st. These two invoices are his monthly fee. One is for October and the next one is for November. He keeps a weekly log of all of his hours, signed off on it, and then submits it to the finance subcommittee for review as well. So this is just getting those up to current. So that was for October and November. And then that's it for the invoices. We can pass it on to, I don't know who wants to handle the change orders, Nelson or Ross.
Would you like to explain them? PCO?
Oh. I'm gonna ask Russ to help out as well. But I got this one?
I'll interject as well.
Oh, you'll interject as well. You're talking about the change orders that were previously
PCOs
discussed?
that,
Yeah, do you want me to yell out the PCO? And then you
Sure.
guys can jump in. All right, first one is PCO 74.
This is the upgrade in upholstery. So we have upholstered seating. Is this in the black box theater?
yeah,
Okay. So in the black box theater, we have retractable seating, so you can create more floor area. And the recommendation, we received the submittal from that company and it had fabric samples, and we could have gone with the standard fabric, but we recommended that it be upgraded to be more durable for a long time. So that ended up costing an additional $5,018.
Next one is PCO 79, digital signage displays.
Right, so in the main concourse of the high school, the new high school, there were opportunities to create this digital displays, announcements, events, those sorts of things. And I can't remember how many. Six.
there were six.
Six. So if you do the math, you can see that per unit, and in each location, we have data drops, we have power, and so on. This was Matt's recommendation, we agreed, and so we recommended that this be added to the project.
The next two, I'm gonna group together.
So, yeah, just three, so this does include the data drops and all the electrical
Yes.
associated.
Yes, it does.
Okay, just wanted to-
And we have, like I said,
Include the monitor, the monitors are part of the technology.
yes,
For good technology package.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
then,
good
so
point.
this change order is just for the data drop and. the
And
electrical?
power,
Yes.
Okay, but not the actual displays, that's under technology.
correct.
So the next two, like Russ had mentioned them, one comes out of owner's contingency, one comes out of CM contingency, but this is for PCO 81 and 82, the acid neutralization tanks.
Right, so acid neutralization is to treat the waste coming off of acid containing chemicals. This is all in the science labs. During the design, we had talked about an individual acid neutralization system, which is a lot of piping, versus a centralized acid neutralization that would collect to a common area for a proper disposal. In the design, we ended up with, and this went back and forth in the design phase. Finally, the decision was to go to individual acid neutralizations. We issued an addendum. The addendum was incorrect. And so we ended up having to clarify this during construction. So it was missed, it had to be purchased. And a portion of, and then there was a discussion with science folks about do they want any more acid neutralization locations? They're typically found in the demonstration area, in the student area, in the hood area. And the answer was yes, they wanted some more acid neutralization stations in order to give them the flexibility to have programs in different classrooms. So consequently, a portion of this was attributed to a buyout confusion. And so consequently, the larger portion of that was attributed to the CM contingency. The increase in numbers of acid neutralization locations was attributed to a change of scope from the owner. And so that was attributed to the owners.
Next, we have PCO 83 added touch panel roof.
So in the backstage area, the request came to have the ability to adjust the volume of the speakers in the backstage area so they can hear what's going on the stage and have that connection between the behind the stage versus on stage. So we added a touch panel, a digital control for the speakers in the back area.
Next, we have PCO 85, this is a cost credit for palm windowsill wood edge.
P-lamp, plastic lamp.
It says palm.
I know it says. There's no pause.
This is why I don't.
Okay, maybe you can help me with that, Archana. This has to do with the operable wall between the main gym and the auxiliary tent.
Yeah, so before this alternate got accepted, the bid had a wall between the large and small gym, and we had windows. So this is the sill of those windows. So since we don't have a wall now, no windows, so there's no plastic laminate windows. So that's why we see this spread.
What about the windows? Do we get a credit on that?
I think that's
Pardon me,
the windows. He's asking about the windows.
The clear story windows between the.
That was part of the alternate, so.
Yeah, so Lockheed.
But the window sill was never identified.
We're gonna get this one right. PCO 88 ambient collector.
So ambient collectors are, to remove particles in the ambient atmosphere of both the shop area. And, the design involved relocating the existing filters from the old shop area and then incorporating them into, the shops. But in addition to that, we added something.
Yeah, so I think two of them are existing ambient collectors from the existing school and two of them are new. So it's kind of power, switch and the hanging mechanism for these two ambient collectors. That's what we see the spots. And
PCO 89 is a lead horizontal sunshade.
Okay, we noticed when they started installing the sunshade, we had both horizontal sunshades as well as vertical sunshades. And we had two horizontal sunshades. We talked about that during the design. And their function is to actually reduce the load on the glass, and that reduces your use of mechanical equipment. But we noticed that the sunshades for all of the areas around classroom block were fine. But we became suspicious that where the grade jumps up into the courtyard, there's a courtyard between classroom block A and classroom block B. The elevation of that ground becomes a paved area and it's a slightly higher. And so our concern was, is it going to be too low? And actually, I was concerned when I saw Chris walking around the site thinking, well, he may hit his head if he's in the courtyard area. And so we should remove the lowest horizontal sunshade. It's not going to have a significant impact on the shading element. So we told the contractor, well, we told the construction manager, don't have him install that lowest sunshade where it comes around the corner and is in the courtyard area. By that point, though, they had already prepared the vertical mullions with slots. The slot is where they have a bracket inserted into the mullion. That bracket supports the horizontal sunshade. They had to replace those vertical mullions without slots. And that ended up being an additional cost. Thank you.
And then the last one we have here is PCO 90 stub up in casework in chem lab rooms.
I'm gonna ask for your help with that one too. Okay, so this has to do with,
so this is at the chemistry labs on the third floor area A and B. So our documents initially showed walkthroughs for power and data in these labs. So to the floor. So we got credit for that, for not using the walkthroughs. So instead of that, we are this causes for to add conduits for data at these labs.
And that's all we have, so all of them there, the whole package here. Any final questions before we vote on that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. We'll move right on to item G3, so this is gonna sound familiar to everybody, so could I get a motion to approve the award of the following company packages at the respective base bid amounts? All right, we'll open this up for any other additional discussion, questions. This is obviously that we received earlier in the meeting. Anything else anybody needs clarification on in this one? Right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, we'll go on to item G4. So that motion to the attached request for fee proposal and interview for owners representative of Move Management Services as presented.
So, second.
All right, we'll open this up for discussion.
You want me to go through it?
Yeah, just a side note before we do that, so just make sure it was clear that this is when we had referenced before, the professional partnership subcommittee did some vetting on this as well in our meeting on Monday. So know that that work has been done and evaluated as well.
So a requirement from the state of Connecticut is to have a two-step process for the reimbursement when you're soliciting proposals. So the first step is qualifications, which we're reviewing tonight in executive session, and you did on your evaluation sheet. The second step is once we narrow it down, we ask for a fee proposal and an interview. So this is basically what we've done in the past. It asks for specifics around a fee proposal. We actually give them a sheet they have to fill out for each of the scope services we're asking for. And then just gives a little bit more information about the interview and what we're looking for. The other sections, project description, scope of services, general conditions, and insurance are copy and pasted from the RFQ that was put out on the street. So it's just reiterating the same information that we're looking for. So again, vetted by the professional partnership subcommittee, and we will give this to whoever we select to move on.
Any additional questions on the fee proposal? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Move right on to the item G5, so I have motion to approve the interview questions for owners representative of New Dental Services for interviews on January 3rd.
So, second.
All right, we will open this up for discussion as well. This all look very familiar to everybody.
Yes, this is our typical process. These questions were vetted by the professional partnership subcommittee and just hit on some of the topics that we're interested in for the move manager / owners rep. Change order information and experience with that, closeout and punch list. A lot of questions about move management, that's where our big effort will be focused. Reimbursement, that's another part of their scope. And the audit at the end. So we felt those were the topics that we really wanted to hit on in the interview. For the interview, we were thinking of a 20-minute presentation from the firm and then 30-minute Q&A. There are 7 questions, which gives every member an opportunity to ask a question.
Any other questions or thoughts? Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. So more to come on that and we get into the year. All right, so we will move right on to B6. So could I have a motion for us to move to executive session for the review and discussion of the RFQ/P responses for owner representative and move management services in accordance with Connecticut General Statute 1-206 and 1-210B 24. Motion.
Second.
All right, just a quick note on here that we want to make sure we include responses to any request for proposal or bid solicitation issued by a public agency or any record or file made by a public agency in connection with the contract award process until such contract is executed or negotiations for the award of such contract have ended, whichever occurs earlier, provided the chief executive officer of such public agency certifies that the public interest in the disclosure of such responses record file. Record for file, all right. Is outweighed by the public interest in the confidentiality of such responses, record or file. The attendance in the executive session shall be limited to voting and non-voting members of the Farmington High School Building Committee and our professional partners. And approval of this motion shall be by 2/3 vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we will move to executive session. Do we need to give any details on online for
Basically what we do for executive session is we adjourn. Executive session is closed to just those members that were listed. There is a motion after, so we will come back onto the meeting to deliver that final motion for adjournment. So we will take a brief pause from the live stream.
We're gonna.
We're all set.
We're all good? All right. So could I have a motion to select Arcadis and Colliers for an interview on January 3rd, 2024 with the Farmington High School Building Committee for the selection of an owners representative / move manager?
Motion, second.
Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Any other business before we adjourn, other than happy holidays, everyone, and Christmas, happy New Year, all sorts of things. But thank you again for a wonderful year. Still got a few more ahead of us.
How long is that punch list gonna get?
I know, like, but yeah, I certainly appreciate and value all of you in these conversations and our professional partners as well. And we've had some transition this year on a few things. I think we're working through all that, which is great, and project's going really, really well. I think we can all say that, and appreciate all the value that brings to the table every time we have these meetings and beyond. All those weekly meetings that are occurring to get us to really well cultivate what we need each month. So thank you. More to come into the new year.
Meg, we appreciate you too. We have to be done. Thank you. You guys really kept us on track and explain everything when we ask them any questions. Thank you so much.
All right. Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Thanks, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We will adjourn at 6:56.